My name is Jukka Kovalainen. I work for Embracer Games Archive. Today we'll be presenting one of our mottos, which is preservation through use. And we have an agenda today, which we're presenting what is Embracer Games Archive, where we are at the moment, why we do physical preservation only, and then to the main point, which is preservation through use. And I'll present also our future goals and aspirations. What is Embracer Games Archive and who are the Embracer Group? So I'll tell you about the Embracer Group first. So Embracer Group is a global group for business in PC, console, mobile, board games and other media. They own IPs such as Tomb Raider, Lord of the Rings, Goat Simulator, Valheim, etc. So entertainment is the key word of Embracer. And in an effort to celebrate and give back to the community and for the gamers and everything, so the Embracer Group decided to create the archive, which was that's why it was founded.
We are building the most comprehensive games archive in the world. We currently have more than 70,000 items in the database, covering more than 50 years of gaming history to preserve and share for future generations. We store more than 50 complete collections, such as Game & Watch, Mega Drive, and Xbox, just to name a few. They are cataloged and housed on more than 3,000 shelf meters, featuring rarities such as the Magnavox Odyssey from 1972, and much more. This is not just an archive, but an important resource for researchers, educators, developers, authors, and schools, which will aid in spreading knowledge beyond the gaming community. A cultural treasure for the love of games.
So Embracer Games Archive it consists of a team of 5 people with the CEO David Boström, Chief Archivist Natalia Kovalainen. We have acquisitions person Thomas Sundhede and archive administrator Mikael Rylander. And my role is technical engineer and process leader. So we're all very passionate about the games, and we've all specialized in our own segments in a way. So, for example, myself, I'm really into simulator games, first-person shooters, and stuff like that, and mostly PC games. So, and we have our colleagues. We have quite a lot of specialities, every one of us. Right now we're working with internships with Karlstad University, and we also have work trainees that work at the archive to get experience with workplace experience and so on. Our focus is on physical games and accessories, and also the machines. We try to be as comprehensive as possible. With games sold commercially. And that means even games that are self-published. For example, if somebody at home did a game and shrink-wrapped it with their mother's hair dryer and sold it at the gas station, it's still seen as a commercial game for us. It might not be our main focus right now in our acquisitions, but it's something that we try to preserve also in the archive. As the video said, our oldest object is the Magnavox Odyssey from 1972, so there's quite a lot of history in our shelves right now. We also have new releases from both companies inside of Embracer Group, but also from the outside. We're constantly growing. When that video was made, it was 70,000 objects. Now we're up to 71,000 objects. We're continually growing, and hopefully more publishers in the future will contribute their physical games to the archive. So our main assets are promotion of gaming and culture. We try to promote games as a form of culture because it's long gone unrecognized, at least in Sweden, and I think it's problem globally that In Sweden, we have a term called trash culture, which was included with comic books and so on. And it was long seen as a form of trash culture, which I think is a really unfavorable way to describe computer games, because it is an interactive medium and it can tell deeper stories and affect us more than film or books can do in some cases. I think it's a worthwhile effort to promote games as a very important part of our shared heritage and culture. So the archive's main focus is mainly towards researchers, educators, authors, and creators in the industry. And but we also do preservation. But as a private entity, we don't have the legal right to do digital backups, for example, and so on. But we are available for other institutions that have the legal right to do backups. We're not open for the public, but if you feel yourself falling into the other categories that you want to utilize the archive, you're more than welcome to contact us. There's forms on our webpage, which I will present later on. We also do smaller exhibitions of our collection, and we want to be able to do that more exhibitions in the future also. If we start with our story, 2019 they decided to transfer Lars Wingefors, which is our CEO and co-founder of Embracer Group. He had an extensive collection, a private collection of around 40,000 objects. So that was the starting donation for the archive. And it has since grown quite a lot. But the start was in 2019, where Thomas Sundhede was our acquisitions guy, who was one of the first people that started adding to that collection. The rest of the team was recruited in 2021, where basically all of us started working. And 2022, I think our biggest thing that happened was that the archive started taking shape. And we're in an industrial location, as you can see. This was filled with storage shelves and all kinds of junk, and we started cleaning it up. And here you can see the whole collection on pallets. I think there was, we counted 100 pallets, and as you can see, it's a really tight squeeze there to go from one door to the next. So that was the entire collection unpacked. So during 2021, we started unpacking everything. We finished it in I can't see right now, is it? Yeah, in March we built, the shelves were built and we started unpacking, and it took about half a year for us to unpack everything. 2023 we registered the first database, also in March, in a special occasion where Lars got to register his favorite Commodore 64 game, River Raid. And after that, it took us roughly 1.5 years to register every object in the archive. So we've registered over 71,000 objects in that time. And right now we're working on iteration 2, and you could see a bit of that in the video. Just to explain, iteration 1 was like a basic information about the objects in the archive. So it's things like the title, what platform, what is the data carrier, and a little bit of language and localization information. That information is pending to change in the future. But we wanted to register everything as fast as possible, so we kept the data that we collected as short and concise as possible. And iteration 2, we started labeling every object, and that means even opening up things that were sealed previously. because we've seen damages done by shrink wrapping where it implodes the boxes and it causes quite a lot of damage. They can start fusing with the plastic and everything. So we see it as a very important step in our preservation work to remove all shrink plastic. And also just to keep track of where everything is, we need a label, and we have accompanying software on our mobile phones which allows us to move the objects and track their history, where they've been and so on. And that also allows us to take photographs of the object in question. So we're taking a front and back photograph of every object. And I think we passed 4,000 objects right now in iteration 2. So it's steadily going along, and at the rate of speed that we're registering these objects right now is quite fast. So I hope we'll be done within a year, but who knows? So what are we doing at this moment? We're working on the database. We're preparing iteration 3, where we will open up all the objects and catalog what's inside of the games. Because we were talking a lot about paratext in these other presentations. There's a lot of more information pertaining to games. So for example, there might be a map, there might be handwritten notes, there might be receipts inside of them, and we want to catalog everything like that because it might be interesting for researchers to gather more information about the objects in our database. We're working with acquisitions, so right now we have a few complete collections coming in soon, and just last week we got, was it Atari 7800, a complete collection of that, and Playdia, I think. So we're continually acquiring more items to our collection. Our previous acquisitions have been huge acquisitions from single collectors. We're moving away from that and now pinpointing more what we're missing. So let's say, for example, we have a PlayStation collection that is 80% complete. There we can complement it with single purchases until we have 100%. Or we might have a system that is so rare that it's hard to find, then we try and find a collector that is willing to donate or sell the acquisition for us. We're doing a lot of networking. So for example, Karlstad University is working very closely with us. We're also working together with the National Library in Sweden and other institutions. And we're also a member of FCAMP. So we're working a lot with the rest of the institutions that are members. And of course, outside. And our conservation efforts are right now, we had recently, beginning of this year, we had what we call the battery days, where we went through the whole collection and removed all the both permanent and primary cell batteries from the collection, so to make it more shelf stable. It was almost 10 kilograms of disposable batteries and 4 kilograms of rechargeable batteries. So it takes quite a lot to take care of this amount of objects we have. We have ongoing preservation projects. So if, for example, a researcher wants to use a Amiga 500, then we probably have one that is ready to go, but we try to prepare it so it is usable. Because, as I said, our motto is preservation through use, and that includes also running things on original hardware. So, why is physical preservation so important? And I'm going to be a bit grim and bleak for a while, so bear with me for a moment. The music industry of the 90s, hard drives are dying. 1/5 of the disk drives from the 90s, which were stored at Iron Mountain Media and Archive Services, they were stored at industry standard temperature, humidity, and have failed. And there's no partial recovery option available. And that is both the drives dying and the proprietary file formats that needed to be created for like a software library to be able to recover those files. So that's a pretty bleak picture on how the preservation efforts for others are going. Video Game History Foundation lost their lawsuit to be able to remotely lend their archive to researchers, and it always falls back into issues with copyright and who can make backups of their collection and who can utilize it. And that's a problem we see all across the world. We have an article about genealogists where they're discussing the problems of copies, and in the end being unreadable. And they're discussing upkeep of paper archives, of microfilm and digital archives, how punch cards are not readily readable these days, and microfilm is not being produced anymore. And doing copies of microfilm is quite tedious also. The problem with digital archives is that you have to be wary of proprietary file types and everything else related to that, and of course the physical media where you're storing it. The Internet Archive was recently hacked, and they're currently also being sued. The archive was down for like 13 days, I think, and longer than that also as read-only. And there's a $621 million legal battle for the soul of the Internet, as it's being quoted by magazines. They lost their appeal regarding digital lending of books. So there's a lot of problems with digital preservation. But I want to highlight this instead. So the Out of Commerce Works portal, remember that it exists, and it's there for you institutions that have the legal right to do digital backups. Utilize it, please, because we can't utilize it because we're still a private entity. But we are available here for you when you need us. So if you need a physical copy of a game, we're more than happy to help you. Let's move on to preservation through use. I'll try and clarify what we mean with that. We try to use our games as a resource, and that can be having, as you can see on the top left there, you can see a class from high school. I don't know if it's high school, but generally kids between 12 and 14 years of age, they have this program where they a lesson in esports and the history of esports. So they utilize the archive. We run a lecture for them where they can see the expansion of esports as a phenomenon, and where the culture has its roots. So, and we end that lesson with a Quake deathmatch, which is very popular with the kids. That's one way that we use the games as a resource. It's also top right there, you can see university students and faculty discussing on how to use it. And there's also a lesson being taught at the archive right now on paratextualizing games. We also use it as exhibitions. So down there on the left you can see exhibition we did, a small private one. So we try to also promote games as a form of culture. So we have political visitors coming over, and we try to show that it is a worthwhile effort to preserve this cultural phenomena, because the Royal Library, both in Denmark and in Sweden, have their sites set on a national level. We try to be as international as possible so that we can fill out the gaps where because we're discussing the differences between what is a Swedish game, what is a Danish game, what is a Czech Republic game. It's always hard to define it and have the legal grounds on, and hopefully we will be there to pick up those parts that are missing. So that's one of our strengths in our archive, I like to think. Another thing is the preservation of hardware. We see that it's just easy to just use emulators and FPGA, but the hardware also sets like the limitations on how do we approach games. I remember as a kid loading a game on the Commodore 64 from tape. It took ages to load. And we'd go around and play and with other stuff at the meanwhile and so on. So your physical interaction with the objects also sort of contextualizes why the games, and we think that's an important also part to preserve. So that's why we try to stick as much as possible to original hardware. We see also a loss of skill and the connection and so on. I usually use an analogy there, or rather it's from a book called Nove Atheni, which is the New Athens. It was the first encyclopedia released in Poland, where there is this picture of a horse. Everyone can see what a horse is. But the problem is, if you've never seen a horse before, how do you know what a horse is? And if they go extinct, how do you know what a horse is? At the same time, how do you know how to load a game on the C64? I know how to do it, but let's talk to a 13-year-old on the streets. They don't have any reference to it. We usually joke about why did you 3D print a save icon when they see a diskette? That's like a silly joke that us older folks always tell, but that shows like the loss of skill and connection to the hardware, and we think that it's really important to have that. Another thing that we think is an important part of the preservation through use thought is networking. We know that we can't do all kinds of preservation work like the digital preservation, so it's very important for us to reach out to you that can and see that we are not alone in this, and we have to work together. That might be like in FGAMP, we have the documentation meetings where we're discussing on how to do a game anthology and so on. So we're more than happy to participate in stuff like that, and also help out new institutions and everyone else starting out. So please use us as a reference and ask us questions. Another part of preservation is also making things available for other people. For example, hooking up a Atari 2600 to a modern TV today is really hard. It might not be preservation as such, but it makes it more approachable to have something new. So we were working together with the prototype version of the Atari 2600 Plus, and they used the archive as a testing bed for trying out all the Atari games and see that it was compatible. So that's one part of the archive that was used. So we ran a prototype model of the Atari 2600 you see there. It was all white and 3D printed plastic, and we had the original consoles, and we could compare what the differences were and so on. So that's one way that the archive has been used. Another one is to facilitate creating remakes. So this is a Mr. Gimmick, or Gimmick in the Japanese release. It was a late release to the Nintendo Entertainment System, was only released in Japan and Scandinavia, and it's very sought after by collectors and speedrunners alike. It has a quite interesting speedrunning community connected to it. But Sunsoft wanted to make a re-release of it, and they were missing the Swedish manuals and box covers. And they got a scanned version of it from us, and a lot of those assets were reused in the new design and everything. So that's one way the archive has been used also. Another use is we work together with Lost in Cult, who are creating books about games in different ways, both working directly with studios and making all kinds of fabulous releases. We sponsored one of their books called The Console Chronicles, which journeys through the history of consoles, and there's a lot of pictures there from both the archive and from other sources. They're currently working on a new book called Joystick to Haptics, where they photographed every controller that we had in the archive. And it was quite an undertaking, but it was really fun to be a part of that. I think also a few pictures in the book, Handheld Legends, were taken from the archive also for different handheld games. But they've done books on, like, you can see the Sable design works on the table there. A really interesting game. So they talked with the developers of Sable and same with other games and so on. And they have also a book series called Lock On, which is really interesting. I can strongly recommend their books. They're really fun. Another use case for the archive was sound. We had some game developers local to Karlstad, and they're currently working on a game, and they wanted computer sounds. So we brought out this beautiful Gateway 2000, started it up, and they recorded the sound from it. And also a lot of different keyboards. So they were running around the archive and tapping on keyboards and like, oh, this one sounds good. And they started recording it. But also things like taking a floppy disk and throwing it on a table and so on. So they used the archive as a sound asset in this case, which I think was real funny. So yeah, I took a part of my summer vacation and went to the archive with them. And it was a really fun experience. Our vision still is to be as extensive as possible in our collection. We're focusing right now on the what we call the bread and butter collection. So, for example, one game that we're missing, and I am ashamed to say this, is Quake. People are always so shocked about it, but there's some games that we should have in the collection that have not just come to us. So we're trying to fill out those gaps right now. We're actually using AI quite a lot and asking, give us a comprehensive list of the 50 best games for the Commodore 64. And then we compare that list to what's in the archive. So that's a really fun way to do it. But also just general research and talking with grassroots movements and so on. So there's a lot of collectors around the world, and they're a valuable resource to us. And I hope that we can be able to build research for them too in the future. We're working currently also on having the archive available externally. Of course, we can't present everything externally. For example, photographs, they're only for internal use because there's always issues with copyright and so on. Of course, if you find a game that you want to know more about, then you can reach out and contact us, and we'll try to figure it out somehow if you want to use it remotely. Or else you can always visit the archive as a researcher. But those are the visions and aspirations right now. We're working on iteration 3, as I told you before. So the iteration 3 will be mostly dealing with the contents of the games. A lot of games are being sent to us, and we always try to reach out to other developers and publishers and try to create like we can't enforce through law that they send stuff to us, not even internally. We can't go out and set an ultimatum and you have to give us your games or anything like that. But we can always try and encourage others to do so, and we will continue to do so. And I'll share with you a thing that Bart from Home Computer Museum told me. Every one of you that are starting off, beginning a new project, always think about what your limits are, and don't start too big, because what you start with sets the precedent on how you go forward. Try and think really hard about what you're trying to create. Try to set your scope, and in doubt, contact your friends and colleagues all around the world. We're open for discussion. Please talk to us if you need some advice, or just to have a person to share your ideas with. We're not doing this alone. I have another slide that I recently found from the New Athens book, which I really like. There's a picture of a dragon and a text where it says, "Defeating the dragon is hard, but you have to try." And I think that's very important words for us that are working in preservation. We're all trying to tackle this dragon, which is game preservation, through different means. But I think together we can defeat the dragon.